Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys joining me today. So what we're going to talk about today is a kind of a controversial topic among DJs. I've had a lot of questions about this, and so I'm going to kind of do my best to answer these questions for you. And these questions are regarding how much do you charge to DJ? So before I get started here, I'm going to go ahead and lead off with saying there's no magic formula for this. Like I can't tell you, no matter where you are in the country, to say, hey, you need to charge X amount of dollars, $1,000, $2,000. I can't say that because there's a lot of different factors that go into deciding what you charge as a DJ. Now, of course, I'm going to be mainly talking about wedding DJs, but this also kind of falls in line a little bit with like bar DJs, other types of event DJs, things like that. I'm not talking professional DJing where like a festival hires you to come out. I'm just talking pricing for wedding DJs for the most part and things like that. So to cut to the chase here, there's about 10 different factors that me and my business partner used with our company to determine what we're going to charge at our events. The first thing you got to kind of consider here before anything else is the location. So if you are in a big city somewhere, you're probably going to charge more than what a DJ would charge in like a rural area. So, that's some of it going on here. You got to also remember the date and time. So the big three first things you got to consider are the date, time, and location. So the date and time. Is it a weekday? Is it a weekend? Those kinds of things can affect your prices because if you're like a lot of wedding DJs, you may have a day job as well. So weekday events are going to be harder for you to pull off. So they need to be more worth it, I guess you would say. But at the same time, that also means venues are less booked. So maybe you charge less for a weekday gig. I guess it kind of depends on your situation. Time, it's the same kind of thing. If somebody's hiring you to come out to a mall to play an hour's worth of music for a event they have or something like that, it's not going to cost, you probably shouldn't charge near as much as you charge for a wedding because the amount of work is a huge difference there. So when it comes to pricing yourself out too, you also have to consider your own experience. Because if you think about it, when anybody gets started, you don't want to be the most expensive person out there because you don't have experience in what they're doing. People are more likely to get a DJ that has 10 years of wedding experience over a DJ who just started. And because of that, that can affect your pricing. So as you get more experienced in your craft and you've been doing it for a lot longer time, you can get by with actually charging a little bit more. Because you've been doing it for so long, your guests and the people hiring you know that you know what you're doing because you've done it forever. If you're a brand new DJ, the people aren't necessarily convinced that you know everything of what's going on, and so in order to get more clients that way, you need to probably charge a little bit less than the other guys to help get your foot in the door. You're not going to do as fancy of events, you're not going to do as big of events probably until you get some experience down. But because you have a lower cost, it gets your foot in the door and can get you gigs that sometimes you wouldn't expect to be good, but end up being awesome. So the next type of thing, like we also talked about this, is what type of event is it? So is it a wedding or is it like a bar DJ gig? So with weddings, there's a whole lot more going into it. Typically, your average DJ spends anywhere from 5 to 25 hours before your event preparing. That's paperwork, that's contracts, that's phone discussions to figure out what they want, and then that's also music prep, making sure all the music's where it needs to be. You go through planning sheets, you make sure you have all of your pieces of the puzzle, put together and ready to go. If you tied my hands, I probably couldn't talk. The next thing you need to think about is the size of the event. So this is something that some DJs don't necessarily take into consideration. Now, whether or not they should is completely up to them. Like I said, there's no magic formula to what we're talking about here. So if the event is a small wedding of 100 people, do you charge less than a big wedding of 300 people? That's something that you have to consider as a DJ to decide whether or not you can charge more for more people or less. Are you going to bring different equipment if you do something like that, or are you going to bring the same equipment and just maybe or arrange it a little bit differently or something like that? A lot of DJs, you have like one standard setup and one set of equipment that they use. So is anything really changing for the DJ if there's 100 people or if there's 300 people? So if there's something that majorly changes when you go from 100 to 300 people, then maybe that is a place that you want to charge a little bit more for. and you price out what you need for that. And then if it's a smaller one, okay, you just use your smaller stuff and you're not going to have near as much work or whatever, and then you can charge less for that. So the next factor is the cost of the event for you. So do each individual event cost you a certain amount of money? So thoughts here are fuel. You have to have fuel to get your thing. Do you have a trailer? Do you have to pay insurance on that trailer? Do you have to pay maintenance on that trailer? Things like that. Like, what does each event cost you? You should probably calculate that. Now, they're all going to be a little bit different when it comes to things like mileage and stuff like that, if it's close, if it's far. Me and my company, we have a set radius that, if you're within that radius, it's around 25 to 30 miles from two city centers, which are kind of close together. If you're outside of that, then typically we'll just charge a fuel fee. And we tell our customers that up ahead of time, hey, since yours is a little bit farther out than our standard working area, we charge a small fuel fee. And typically it's not much of a problem because we don't charge a ton for it, but that fuel fee helps cover the extra expense that I have to travel with my trailer outside of the area. So those are different things you can consider when it comes to the actual cost of what it costs you per event. Do you have to buy something for the event? Do you have to buy, I don't know, a new tie every time you go to an event? Something like that. Look at actually what it costs you per event to do. The next piece is, what kind of add-ons? Do you have add-ons? Do you want to include things all in one package? So like uplighting, that's a quick example. Do you charge more for uplighting, or is that included in a base package? Are 4 uplights included in a base package to go like behind the head table, but then you charge more for extra uplights, things like that. So once again, that's another thing that you kind of got to consider when it comes to cost, is you have to buy all this equipment ahead of time, but you obviously probably shouldn't charge your client exactly what it would cost you to buy all the stuff. That doesn't really make sense for them, because then they'll just go buy the lights themselves and then sell them when they're done. So you have to think about, I bought $1,000 worth of lights. Do I want to spread that cost that it costs me over a year's worth of events? So then I can price it out that way. I do an average of, just for example, 4 weddings a month, calculate all up across the year, and then, okay, take my total cost, divide it between all those events that are going to be that year, and then you kind of have an idea of what a year's worth, if you're planning on getting 10 years out of these lights, then that's actually not too bad. And that can help save the customer money too, but you can also calculate, that's just to pay it off, but do you want to pay it off faster than that? Things like that. You can always consider your equipment investments as a solid investment, and they're going to last you longer than just 1 or 2 events. I know there's a wedding company close to me here that charges per uplight that is used at an event. That's not something that we do. We charge for an uplighting package, and we will take care of if your venue needs 4 lights, or if your venue needs 24 lights. We charge a flat fee to uplight your event, and that way it gives us a bit more flexibility, and it gives the client a little bit easier time understanding that they don't have to pay per individual light. They may pay for 40 lights, and the event venue can't support that, or it just looks dumb with that. So that's why we don't charge per individual uplight that's used at an event, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to charge per uplight. And the client wants to usually have a good idea of what it is ahead of time. I guess you could say that, we'll just uplight 24 uplights, and if probably, and then we'll just charge you at the end for however many uplights we used. That's not something that we do. If that's something you do, that's something you need to include into how much you actually charge. The last thing, or one of the last things at least, is package deals. Do you want to include everything in a package? I know some DJs, especially when they're starting off, they like to charge per hour for the event itself. And sometimes that makes total sense. That's actually something that I did whenever I first started DJing, is I charged per hour from the time of introductions at a wedding reception until the end of it. I did not charge for cocktail hour because I'm already set up anyway. I had to be there, so it wasn't a big deal. I don't charge for cocktail hour, and I didn't charge for any kind of setup or tear down. I made it simple. I was like, one block of time, which starts at a clear start and it ends at a clear end. I'm going to charge per hour for that amount of time. Typically around here in my area, wedding receptions are approximately 4 to 5 hours. Sometimes they're less, sometimes they're more. Well, one thing that I found out actually pretty soon after starting my pricing like that was that some people were interested in cutting their event short so they could save a little bit of money. And we found that may not be best for our clients, because we're out there to make our clients happy. So we found out that was not going to necessarily work exactly as we wanted it to work, doing it that way. So we ended up going to a package price, which was a certain number for 4 hours worth of wedding reception, starting here, ending here, specified. If you want more than 4, then it's a flat, this much per hour after that set package fee. That set package fee also included a lot of stuff. It included sound system. It included basic dance floor lighting. It did not include uplighting, but basically one package. It's a one-stop shop. That'll get your wedding reception done. But if you want to piecemeal that stuff out, you can. One thing I don't recommend, and I know a lot of DJs do it this way, is they charge different amounts for different equipment. So like, say you want subwoofers at your event. Some DJs charge to have subwoofers at your event. They charge differently than just 2 main speakers, something like that. And that kind of bothered us, because we strive for the best quality of event, from beginning to end. And I wouldn't want to have gone to an event and didn't bring subwoofers because the client didn't request them or pay for them, and then having this awesome party that people at the end were going like, man, it was okay, but man, this didn't have any bass, or something like that. We didn't want that. So we combined, sound system as in one thing, and then we tailor that system depending on their venue and what their needs are. So they're not going to pay more for subwoofers, but we're always going to try and bring the best sound system we can for the venue that they have and the amount of people they have. And so the last thing here is, do you want to do this quote-based, or do you want to have flat pricing rates? So for us, we have flat pricing rates. A wedding costs this much for us. Ceremony costs this much. Uplighting costs this much. So there's 3 items there that are just flat 3 items. If you want an additional hour, that's one thing, and then fuel's another additional thing. But we send the client this information. We send it to them all ahead of time. So they know what each piece is going to cost. They know what an additional hour is going to cost if they want it. They know all this information ahead of time. They don't actually have to necessarily get a quote from us, because I know each event is a little bit different, but our prices are organized so that no matter if it's an event with 10 people or 2,000 people, well, 2,000 is too much, 200 people, 10 people or 200 people, it's going to be about the same, And if there are, of course, there's always been extenuating circumstances for some things. Benefit events that we do, we'll do benefit events if it's benefiting someone or a charity or something like that. We obviously do those at sometimes nothing, depending on who the charity's for and stuff like that. But we do things like that. So there's always exceptions to this rule. But we try to lay out our prices clear and ahead of time so that they know what the heck's going on. The client is not surprised by anything. And it also saves us time on actually having to quote every event. Because like if I had, it's much easier to send a client a pricing and information sheet right off the bat, and they also feel a little more comfortable than actually having to get a quote, because some DJs you can look up the price online, and maybe that's what you want to do, and ahead of time, hey, that's cool. But this guy got to fill out this whole form and get a quote. I don't really know if I have time for that or if I want to do that. So that's another thing too. Do you want to quote them, or do you want to leave them as one big package or small packages or whatever, and be clean and clear to your customers that way? All right, so once again at the very end here, there's no magic formula. I will tell you what we charge for weddings, and typically a 4-hour wedding reception for us is around $1,000. So of course, if they have add-ons, it's different. If they have ceremony, it's different. Things like that. There's sometimes extenuating circumstances, but average, I'm not going to say this is the exact dollar amount, but average around $1,000. But that's also taken into consideration the area we're in. We're typically considered a rural, I can't say that word, rural area. And so, you would charge more in a city for the exact same product you get here. But, my prices are based on what I need out of each event to pay off, insurance, to pay off all this kind of stuff that we have that's combined as part of our, what does it cost to do per an event? And then, based on experience level as well. So there's some guys charging more than us, or some guys charging less. We're not the most expensive, but we're not the least expensive. We're not the bargain choice, because you're not going to get a bargain DJ when you hire us. You're going to get someone who has years of experience. But, some guys charge more because maybe they bring something different to the table. So that's up to them, and I can't decide their prices for them. I can only decide mine. So if you guys have questions, hit me up in the chat, or hit me up in the comments, I guess you would say, down below, and I'll do my best to answer your questions for you. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. I'd appreciate it. I got a lot more stuff coming up. I've been slow on videos lately because everything's going on, and I've been very busy around my house, so I'll get to more of these videos here soon. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.